Hello, everyone. I'm Becky Goldsmith from Piece of Cake, and this is Timeout. And it's Wednesday, and the quilts behind me. Oh, first, let me say thank you for joining me this week. Thank you for taking a time out with me. It's really good to be here because last week, was I here last week? I think I was out of town. No, I was here last week. You know, you'd think I travel all the time, and I don't, but I'm here now. Okay, behind me, remember these quilts? These are my spring bling quilts. And I'm happy to tell you, not only is it no longer a surprise, the class is up on Creative Spark. Now, I'm going to show you, this is the cover picture that is up on the Creative Spark site. And if you don't know MJ Kinman, that is she on my screen. She's on the left. I hope she's on the left on your screen. And that is me, of course, sort of hidden behind the blue quilt. We went together on this class. It's really, really fun. MJ does, excuse me, pieced gems. She's got a technique that's traditional sewing, but she makes the templates from freezer paper. It's pretty cool. It's kind of a no-fail thing to do. And then what I did as part of the class is machine applique. And I have not really taught online much machine applique, but it's really fun and it's quick. And if that's what you want to do, I have a class to help you with it now. So you can find it on Creative Spark. There is a link to the class on my website. There's a link to Creative Spark on the homepage. And then under classes in the menu bar at pieceocake.com, you can go down and find links to all of my seven now. I have 7 classes online. Okay, so today what we're talking about is the gem pillow. And at least I'm talking about the gem pillow. You may have a different pet that you are making your pillow from, but we're to the embroidery. So my applique was done, and then it was time for the embroidery, and that's where we're going to start. I know that the kind of embroidery I want to do is going to be more improvisational. So I pulled out the 2 books that I still have in my library that have more improvisational work inside. Not necessarily to copy, more for inspiration. But these books were published with the idea of people seeing the work and taking from it what they need for their own stitching. So this book was printed in 1966. It is Applique Stitchery by Jean Ray Laurie. I love this book. I have always loved this book. It is so very 1960s. And you know how everything old is new again? The drawings and the patterns inside here feel very current. And it's funny, it's so black and white, where today this book would be full of color. Back in the day, having color plates made a book more expensive. And so there aren't that many color images. And those that are there are really wonderful. This book is primarily about applique, but what I very much enjoy about it is how she used stitching inside her applique and inside her other designs. And she was making stuff up. It's wonderful. She was using the thread to make lines, to make marks. And that is very improvisational and artful and wonderful. So if you can still find this book online anywhere, I recommend that you get it. It's pretty wonderful. And she did include embroidery stitches, how she did what she was doing. This is pretty interesting because she's gone from a Y stitch to a feather stitch to an improvisational feather stitch. It's very inventive. All right, so that's Applique Stitchery by Jean Ray Laurie. This is a book that I just recently ordered. It was first published in 2017, and this is its second printing in 2021. It says, it's Stitch Illo Volume 5 Encyclopedia of Inspiration. And it really is an encyclopedia of inspiration. And you know, it's funny. I had left this paper on it till just a minute ago, and then this kind of fell off. What's funny is this is a fold-out inspirational bit of paper that I didn't even know was there in quite that way. It's funny. Okay. I actually like the book cover better than what was on top of it as the protective sheet. So I'm going to leave this off of it. And even just looking at the cover, you can get ideas, because this is a compilation of many different artists' work. And they each have their own style, and they are each drawing with thread and fabric, and sometimes thread and paper, making all kinds of things in all kinds of ways. And as you look through, the wonderful thing that happens is you can see that beautiful things can be made in so many different ways. Each of us may be making a pet pillow, but every single one of us can do something different with our own designs, even starting from the same drawings. So as I'm working on my own Jim the Cat, I may pick both of these books up and thumb through them, especially if I get stuck, just to become reawakened to the possibilities. Because you know, when you're presented with a blank canvas, even when you're full of ideas before you look at the blank canvas, sometimes that will chase those ideas right on out of your head. So I would encourage you, just as I'm going to do, you know, look at things for inspiration and then interpret them in your own way on your own work. So for example, I'm wearing this Johnny Was top, and as I look at it on the camera, I'm thinking, you know, that's some of those flowers have possibilities. Anyway, inspiration can come from all over. But that said, with my pillow, I am going to start with the easy part first, because it's a way to get into it and get going and get your juices flowing without committing to some grand artistic design right out of the gate. Here we go, because first things first. So just like you, I've thumbed through all my inspirational material. I might have looked on Pinterest. I've looked around. I'm very excited. And then you look at the cat and you think, okay, exactly what am I going to do? I am going to start with the easy part first. I know that I want to outline the cat because I like outlines. What can I tell you? I just do. And I know that I'm going to want to do a certain amount of line work inside the face and to delineate the paws and the tail, and probably that forward hip bone. I may wait on that, even though I drew it in. I may ignore that for now. So, what color am I going to outline him with? I looked at lots of things. I looked at dark colors, and I decided, really, what's the point? Because the outer edge is dark, so not those. I looked at these colors. I looked at the burgundy, And I do like the burgundy, but I gotta tell you, it disappears into the black. So again, what's the point? I kind of like the bright orange, except for where it's going, the bright orange doesn't really work. I looked at blues because blue is the complement of orange, but you know what? That's just one too many things. I don't like that. I looked at all kinds of greens because there's green in the background of the fabric, but I gotta tell you, that is just not doing anything for me. I like the red. I'm not sure why I like the red so much, but I like the red. There's red in the print. It's bright without being overly bright. This is a number 8 pearl cotton from Wonderfill. And I want a number 8 here because I want the line to really show. And in fact, I want it at least to be doubled. I'll be doing a stem stitch or an outline stitch so the stitches lay against each other and they're doubled. I don't know that I need to double my thread and do that stitch, although it is a possibility because that puts 4 strands of thread around the perimeter of the cat, and that really is very visible, and I kind of like it. I will probably start with a double strand of thread in my needle, doing the stem stitch around the perimeter. On the inside of the cat, I may continue the red up into the tail, probably I will, and the red on his elbow and on his, around the outlines of his paws. Maybe I'll use red around his face, probably so. But when I jump to the interior detail on the face, I'll switch colors. And it could very well be one of these other colors, and I might jump to a 12 weight thread rather than sticking with the 8 weight. I am choosing to tackle this one thing at a time. I want to get my outlines done. I want to see how it's coming together before I decide how to fill the rest of the cat. If, after being inspired by looking through the books, you want to do a little more sketching on paper or on your tablet before you actually start sewing any lines, that's perfectly fine too. There isn't any one right way to do it, but I am going to show you the way I'm doing it. Because I'm here to show you what I'm doing. Okay, there's something I really want to say, and I thought it as I was looking at the threads and filming that video, and I thought it again when I watched the video, and that is there should be more colors. Really, shouldn't there be more colors? You know, you go through the color wheel and there's variations on the themes. So like there's different shades of red, and there's different shades of orange, and maybe different shades of pinks. But you get right down to it, you work through the color wheel and you get back to where you started and there's nothing new. Every time I go to try and find something really new and different, I can't find it. So, you know, when you get there and you're looking for your own thread colors, if you wish there was something else, no, you are not alone. Okay. Because this is an opportunity for me to share with you technique that you might not know, because some of you have not done much embroidery. I haven't done a huge amount, but I've done enough. I've made videos to show you the outline stitch, which is also sometimes referred to as a stem stitch. So let's go there next. It's going to be easier to show you the embroidery stitches on white fabric than it is against the darker pillow. I have threaded up with my number 8 Wonderfill Pearl Cotton. I'm using my number 9 Bowen Crewel embroidery needle. I can thread this needle. I know some of you may have trouble threading it. If so, move to a bigger needle, either a bigger embroidery needle or one of the Sashiko needles. I want to begin by demonstrating a stem stitch that is also sometimes called an outline stitch. What's interesting is you think about sewing forward, but with a stem stitch, you're actually moving from left to right rather than right to left. I've brought my needle up on the line. Now, if we imagine that the stitch length is something like that, I want to actually go twice that far over and come up in between at the imaginary stitch length spot. And because I'm working with the double strand, I want to do my best to get those threads to pull through evenly. Bring your thread below the stitch towards you, and then put your needle in again that same distance away and come up where the previous thread went into the background fabric and pull it through. You might notice that I am not using a hoop. I don't like embroidering in a hoop. If you want to use a hoop, feel free to do so. And what a hoop will do is keep the background taut or taut enough so that you don't have to worry quite so much about pulling the thread through with too much tension. Although even in a hoop, you do want to be careful not to pull your stitches too tight. And if you do get them too tight, use the eye end of the needle to reach in and loosen them up. And this is it. This is the stem stitch. You go forward, whatever that length was that you've decided is your stitch length. Come up where the last stitch went in to the fabric, and then gently pull your stitch to the proper tension. The double-stranded stitch is really very nice. I like the thickness, but I want to see what it looks like with a single strand. I would not do this if I was for real sewing on the quilt block. I wouldn't just cut the thread like that. But here, I just want to do a comparison. So now I will be sewing with a single strand, same stitch. It is easier to work with, both because it pulls through the fabric a little more easily and because you're not having to worry about getting both the strands pulled through evenly on each stitch. So there is the heavier stem stitch and the single strand lighter stem stitch. Either way, it makes a nice line. Personally, I think I will use this one around the outside of the cat, and probably I'll use the single strand on the interior of the cat. Okay, things I thought of that I should tell you. When you see me sew the next one, the back stitch, pay attention to how I'm holding the fabric in my hand. I hold the fabric so that as I'm sewing with my needle hand, the needle is pointed at the thumb of my, well, for me, it's my left hand. I'm sewing from right to left. And I'm able to keep my thumb more or less level with the, you end up cocking your wrist at some weird angle. So you don't want to find yourself sewing toward yourself with your wrist like this or like that. Keep your wrist relaxed. Hold the cloth in your hand so that however you're holding the needle, so that you can make the stitch keeping both of your wrists relaxed and not tense. If you have questions about that, you can go back and look at different ones of my hand sewing, hand applique videos on YouTube, because I know I've talked about it way more than once. Okay, all right, so let's look at the back stitch. Now I want to show you the back stitch because it makes a nice line that is similar to but different from the stem stitch, and it's a really similar stitch, but this time instead of moving from left to right, you're moving from right to left. I've brought my thread up there. I'm going in. It's that I'm using that same stitch length, which I could make longer or shorter. That's a design choice you get to make. And then I'm going to go in where the thread went into the background, go in front of where the thread has come out of the background. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong thing and I tightened that first stitch too much. Let me loosen that. Pull that a little bit right. It is the same stitch, but different. Off camera, I cut one thread and made some more back stitches with a single strand. And you can see it's really pretty. Where you have two strands, it makes a heavier line. Where it's a single strand, it makes a lighter line. I think on the face and whiskers and some of the finer detailed line work, I'm going to use the back stitch rather than the stem stitch. And I don't know if I'll use a number 8 weight or a lighter 12 weight. I'll just have to see how it looks on Jim the cat. Okay. It just makes me laugh. So this is the front of my sample fabric. And this side is the stem stitch and this side is the back stitch. But if you turn them over, the back of the back stitch looks a whole lot like the stem stitch, and the back of the stem stitch looks a whole lot like a back stitch, which is why I said it's like the same stitch but different. It's like the same stitch but different. Okay, so notes to myself. The thread tails. I'm sure you noticed as you looked through that there were thread tails shadowing through. Let me see if I can make that shadow through up here. Yeah. If my pillow was very light, if the pillow background was very light, I would pay close attention to those thread tails. I might leave a long enough tail so that I could weave it underneath some of those lines of stitches. I really hate to cut the thread tails very close to the knot, but that's an option. I suppose if you are someone who might not be me, you could glue the knot and then cut the thread tails. I wouldn't do that, but it's an option. There are different ways you can get around it, but for me, my background is black, so I am not worrying about the thread tails in this instance. The other thing is you can adjust your stitch length, especially knowing that this is somewhat improvisational. It's not like you're going to be graded on how your stem stitch looks, stem or back stitch. What's important is that they look the way you want them to look. So make your stitch length suit yourself. Okay, I did mine. So you saw where I started. Let me show you where I am now. So here I am. Let me back it up. I outlined him with a double strand of the red. So that is an outline stitch with double strand of number 8 Wonderfill Pearl Cotton. The inside is a single strand right here. So I did the red interior with a single strand of the 8 weight Pearl Cotton. And then I switched to a 12 weight Pearl Cotton to outline his face. And he really needs more embroidery, which is where I'm going next, and that's what we're going to do next week. I'm going to do his eyes and his face, and I don't know how much more I'll be showing you about that next week, but certainly his eyes and his face, and then talk about what I want to put on his body. So there will either be 1, but probably 2 more weeks of Jim the cat. And I just want to say, I'm having fun with this. I hope you guys are having fun with this. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure that before I start doing the wildly more improvisation, well, am I going to be wildly improvisational? I don't know. I actually like things a little tidier and more controlled. So wildly improvisational will be different for me, and it could happen, but I'm not sure. I will look through my books again. I might go to Pinterest. I might, I'm going to look. I'm going to look at stuff. And then I'm going to sew, and then I might look at some stuff some more, and I might pull out my iPad and do a little doodling on top of what I've already drawn just to get a feel for what I want to do. I recommend that you do the same. So between now and next week, get your pet outlined. If putting at least the bones of the face on makes sense, do that. And then we'll be back next week for more. Let's see here. Let me move this and see what I need to do. Let's see. Oh, I need to do this. Need to say, you can email me with questions because once I finish with the pet pillow, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to talk about on timeout. So if you have suggestions, feel free to pitch them out there. And I will see you next Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And until then, may you have many happy stitches. I appreciate you spending time with me. And I said it once, but I'll say it again. I'll see you next week.